Funding for the art show was made possible by Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, the Virginia W. Kettering Foundation, proud supporter of the arts in our community, and viewers like you. Thank you.
In this edition of The Art Show, singer and songwriter Meghna Mahambre talks about her evolving music. Karen Heil surprises even herself by becoming a stone carver. See one artist's passion for her school and city. And a platypus's tale comes to life. It's all ahead on this edition of The Art Show. Hello, I'm Rodney Veal, and welcome to The Art Show, where each week we showcase local, regional, and national artists and arts organizations. This week, I'm excited to sit down with Dayton's Meghna Mahambre and discuss the evolution of her music in the last decade. Now, she's released an R&B dance album, a folk acoustic album, and most recently, a pop album. Thanks for being here, Megan. We're glad to have you on our show.
Thank you.
So my first question to you is, I listened to some of your albums online. You have 3 distinctively different albums. What's your style?
Well, I think my style has changed over the years. My first album I recorded when I was in college, so I was very into dance music and R&B and hip hop, and so that album kind of reflects that sound at that time. And then my second album, like you mentioned, is folk acoustic. It's a little more mellow, haunting, kind of focus on melodies and instrumentation. And that's what I was into at the time, so that's what I recorded. And then most recently is my singer-songwriter pop album, which kind of gave me a chance to get more personal and intimate with the lyrics and the music, and let it be a reflection of who I am right now.
So that last album is a reflection of you. Do you think that's really, truly your style?
Well, I think it is now. I don't think it was 5 years ago, and I don't know that it will be 5 years from now. But I think that, through our lifetime, we change so much. So it's not so much, sometimes people ask me, like, do you think you haven't found your sound? I mean, do you have an identity as a musician? And I think it's not so much a lack of identity. I think it's the evolution of my identity.
Well, that's pretty cool. I love that, like, the concept of evolution as an art maker. And you're also a songwriter. So can you talk a little bit about what your inspiration is?
Lyrics are very important to me. And I realized that's not always necessarily the case for all musicians or even listeners of music. Some people pay attention just to the music or the melody, but I'm a stickler about what I'm saying in my songs. And so, of course, I take inspiration from my own life, as many artists do. But I realized after you've written 3 albums and you're trying to write more original songs that after a while you're not really reinventing the wheel in any way in terms of content, right? We're all writing about heartache and love and joy and life and friendship and all of that. But so the focus becomes not so much what I'm writing about, but how I'm expressing it. I try to think of a unique way or a creative way or an original way to really say the same things say the same thing that other people are saying, but in a way that is personal to me, that maybe other people will be able to connect with.
Well, that's pretty cool. And that's a lot of artists especially musicians, are doing music videos. And you've done some music videos. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about your music video, Tall Chair?
Yeah, sure. It's actually my second music video. I did one for my first album, and back then, which is about 10 years ago, making a music video, which was a much bigger feat. We were hiring directors and producers from big cities and a camera crew, and it took, 2 days, and it was a big production. But luckily, so many things have advanced now, and with the network of people that do video and editing and all of that, it just is more accessible. So I was very lucky to meet, it's a friend of a friend, his name's Nishan Gilmet, and he's a local videographer, and he found out about my music, and he said, if you ever want to make a music video, let's do it. And it, before long, it was done. It was a pretty easy process for us.
Anything about it that stood out to you that was unique and different about me doing music videos as opposed to performing live?
You get an opportunity to put a visual to a song. On stage you're limited and you just got yourself and your musicians, maybe some props or something, but you actually get to show a storyline in a music video, and you get to put some time and thought into expressing what you're trying to say through picture. And so I wanted the video to show my audience what the song was really about, and why it was meaningful to me.
Oh, cool. So were you pretty hands-on with the artistic decisions on the visuals?
I was, maybe to a fault. I'm the kind of person who knows exactly what I want. So I did sit down and storyboard the entire video from beginning to end. Every portion of the video, down to every second, is I want a shot of this, and then I want, you to zoom in on this, and I want this and that. Mainly because when it is your own song, in your head what the feeling is supposed to be at every moment, and so you can kind of picture it.
So what's really exciting is the fact that we have your music video that we're going to show on the show.
Oh, great.
And
okay.
So it gives our audience a chance to see what you're talking about and what you're all about. So we're really excited to have you on our show, so thanks. So here now is Meghna's single, Tall Chair.
I sit and stare at the empty tall chair, and I wonder if it's doing okay, or if it's just hanging in there like me. Won't you come sit down next to me again? Play me one more song. Tell me what you want me to do, and I will just come back to where you belong. I go through the motions like nothing has changed, but the tall chair and I know nothing's the same. Won't you come sit down next to me again? Play me one more song. Tell me what you want me to do, and I will just come back to
Magna performs around town with her full band, Magna and the Majority. Check out thinktv.org and click on the art show for their show dates. Cincinnati stone sculptor Karen Heil knew in kindergarten she was going to be an artist. The teacher would hold up her artwork in class as the example. However, it wasn't until many years later that she actually became an artist.
I never saw myself as a stone sculptor or any kind of a sculptor. So when my kids went to school, I decided to go to the Art Academy here in Cincinnati, and it was there that I was introduced to stone sculpture, and I was in my 30s at that point. I think what attracted me to stone carving and what I saw in it was that not only was it a challenge mentally, but physically. I went home tired, and I still do go home tired from the physicality of doing stone sculpture. Most of what I do in bas-relief stone carving is commissioned work. It's from either corporate America, hospitals, or people's private homes. My greatest joy comes from when they just say, do what you do. And then I can give them a narrative about what they're talking about based on natural forms that I gather from nature, flowers, leaves, even animals, birds.
To begin the process, Karen sees the piece in her mind and then must put it on paper for her clients.
My drawings are pathetic sometimes because I see it, but I can't put it on paper. That's not my medium. Chisel and stone is my medium. Once I have the drawing, I grid the drawing. It's a scaled drawing to match the size of the stone, and I transfer that drawing to the stone. And then I begin carving. I just take the edge of the chisel and I start outlining the form. Say it's a bird. It'll be like a scratch in the surface where I outline that form. That's gonna pop forward. That's the part that's gonna stick out. So everything surrounding that bird has to come off. Then there's a leaf. Then I have to take everything around that leaf off without losing the other leaves. This is thinking three-dimensionally, so you have to know which things are coming forward and which things are staying back. When I make a mistake, nobody knows it because a leaf can be just about any kind of shape you want to make it. The tools that I use now are all pneumatic, but when I began carving, it was all hammer and chisel like they did in the olden days, but it takes forever to get a piece finished. And so I was introduced into pneumatic tools with a special hammer that's a very small version of a jackhammer in a street. So only the chisels don't lock in. You hand hold both pieces and you guide it. So you're working both hands, both arms at the same time. And you control the amount of pressure that comes through that air hose so you don't take off too much, or you can take off more by having more pressure come through. My stone that I use mostly at this point in my life is Indiana limestone. Most of it comes from Bedford, Indiana. I choose limestone, number one, because it's available. Number two, because it's soft. Number three, it wears well outdoors. And number four, it forces me to put a really good design in it.
SD1, Northern Kentucky's wastewater and stormwater utility, is using art to educate people about our precious resource, water. They commissioned Karen to create 3 sculptures: Water, Gift of the Earth; Water, Source of Life; and Water, Sculptor of the Land.
I actually went down to the quarries and I found these huge cores of stone that are probably 36 inches across. And I thought, wow, what are these? And they said, oh, that's just garbage. Those were core samples. They were each 5 feet tall, so we cut them in half. So we had these 4 pieces, and then there was going to be a fountain, so we had to core the centers out. So the title comes from Water, Sculptor of the Land, which the water cuts through the earth and reveals the fossils, which tells the history of the land, how many millions of years ago. And the fossils, some of them are carved, some of them are made out of terracotta clay. And that was a project I worked in collaboration with Alan Nairn, who is a Cincinnati potter now working at the Rookwood Pottery.
Having worked with stone for years, Karen has taken on a new medium, clay.
I had no idea what I was doing in clay, so I thought, how can I make clay more a part of me and me a part of the clay? So all of a sudden one day it just came to me, why not carve the clay? And then I found out too, because I have essential tremor, that I can't throw and pull clay. I can't throw clay because my hand shakes the whole way up. So I hire somebody to throw a basic vessel for me. And then I embellished it. I add the handles, the decorative handles to it. I add the stuff that make the beak. I focused on pictures. And then the pictures reminded me of birds. So now all I do are these vessels in clay that are birds. And once I figured that out, and I liked that I had this carved clay vessel, then I thought, something's not right. So then I decided I'll carve a base for it out of limestone. So then I brought my stone carving back into it. So now I'm conflicted between carving and making clay. But I found a way to keep the stone carving into my life by creating these vessels. So that's how that all got started. And right now the clay vessels are just occupying all my time. I can't imagine not doing this. I mean, the only way I won't do this is if I'm dead, because this is what I feel like I was born to do. It is my passion, and I think that's what my legacy is, to just fulfill your dreams by doing your passion, follow your bliss.
Karen's studio in the Pendleton Art Center in Cincinnati is usually open on the last Friday of each month from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Visit thinktv.org and click on the Art Show link for details. We receive quite a few emails each week, so keep contacting us with your story ideas. Let us know what sets you apart from other artists. Send an email to theartshow@thinktv.org. Include contact information and links to performances or art samples online. For Wisconsin painter Lynn Casper, her attention to detail is easily seen in her cityscapes, maritime scenes, and depictions of life at the University of Wisconsin. Using a combination of realism and impressionism in her work, Casper is able to capture the vibrancy of a city and share her passion for architecture. Here's a look.
From sports to the historic scenes to contemporary scenes to panoramas to little highly detailed depictions of doorways and porticos. I've done the gamut, really. And I think that's what has kept it interesting for me, is never sticking to one thing. My name is Lynn Casper, and I'm an artist. I'm an artist that combines realism, detail, and impressionistic touches in a contemporary way. I like to populate my paintings with people and bring a liveliness to the viewer and invite the viewer into the scene. I spend a lot of time on compositions for my pieces. Color and contrast and textures make an interesting view for the eye to kind of just descend into the distance of the piece. So you get almost an abstract feel in portions of the piece, and maybe a little bit tighter and more detailed for detailed elements of the piece. I had back injuries and I had to change my technique because I couldn't bend over for certain controlling of watercolor washes. So I ended up doing this mixed media technique, which I've applied now to experimentally to a different type of board and a different type of surface. The title of the piece is River Walk Reflections, basically because the city is reflected in the river. And we're playing up the renaissance of the River Walk, which is a popular place for strolling, and I wanted to feature how the lighting along the river at night draws people into the scene. In the piece, we have many of the iconic buildings that define the river as seen from the Kilburn Avenue Bridge. It's a night scene, a moonlit night scene. The buildings are lit and kind of glow from below from the light of the harp lamps. The harp lamps give a glow to the lower parts of the buildings in the piece, and they reflect in the water, as well as other lights coming from the windows of the buildings and the bridges down the river. In this piece, I wanted to emphasize the vitality of our city in a contemporary way, how popular a place it has become. I took photos, reference photos, both. It was always at night, but during the summer months, and then also this winter, I took some photos because the lighting does change on some of the buildings, and I wanted to capture the lighting at its most dramatic. I used them as reference, and then I worked composition off of various elements from an assortment of photos and combined them all into almost like a panorama of the night scene. For this particular piece, it was a reverse of what I usually do. For many years, being a watercolorist, you are very conscious of keeping and establishing the whites in the piece. This time around, I prepared a ground surface that was black, and I worked in reverse from black to the highlights. Yeah, it was a totally different process and challenge for me. And I enjoyed it because there's a graduation and a shading to get the glow from the lights on the buildings and all. And it was a buildup of lights. I love architecture. I graduated from Madison with a degree in art history, but most of my classes were in architectural history. I absolutely love that whole aspect, but also people and documenting how buildings looked, going through Fire Atlas maps to see what was located in various buildings at the time, and researching the lighting of the period, because I did a whole series of scenes of historic Milwaukee, and thoroughly enjoyed the challenge of depicting the buildings as they looked with the people in the street as they were dressed, and then went on to other things because I liked the challenge of different subjects. Going into the sports aspect of it with the University of Wisconsin, band director Mike LaCrone asked me to do some work for the band, depicting them. There's a joyful optimism in my work. That makes me feel good because when I'm in a scene working on a painting, I want to be there myself. That's the type of thing I want to paint, is would I want to be there?
You can always check out more of Lynn's work by visiting thinktv.org and clicking on the art show. We end tonight with some grown-up story time at Boo Town, a fun, non-traditional theater in Houston. Grab your blanket, get comfortable, and watch this shadow puppet show about an unfortunate platypus.
I was watching Life of Mammals, which David Attenborough narrates, and it's really wonderful. And he came to this section that was about the platypus, but you didn't know that it was about the platypus. And he was telling a little bit about their history, and he's just so animated and so great. And he said that when explorers first discovered this animal and sent word back, nobody believed them, and that they thought it was like a unicorn to them because it's so weird. And then it just zoomed on David Attenborough's face, and he goes, "But no, it's real, it's alive, it's the platypus." And it was just really magical, and I fell in love with David Attenborough and the platypus at the same time. And so yeah, that's where we came up with the idea. So he gets taken from his homeland, basically stolen for scientific research, and then there's some scenes where he's getting worked on in a lab, and then he gets sold to a circus once they're done with him to live in a sideshow tent, and that's basically as far as I can go. I mean, what are you gonna do if you get stolen? I mean, there's also, what I think is the saddest part is that there's no way for him to go home ever. He's never going home. And so he just has to figure it out and make the best of what's given to him. And at first, it's the worst that's given to him. And there's really no good to be made of it. But once he's sold to the circus, he can kind of start to adapt and figure out what he's gonna do now. I had a lot of grand ideas about things that I wanted to do with like moving parts and things that are really, you need more 3D puppets for. And at first when we were starting out, I was like, I'm gonna play with that. I wanna see what that's like, and you have to adjust your whole set too, because it's not just a table with projectors at that point. You need to have shelves attached to your screens if you're gonna have 3D things built up onto them, and we didn't actually do any of that. And I like it that way because I think what's great about shadow puppets is they're so simple, and it's just shapes and two colors, and that's all you really have to communicate. I do think the moving puppets that we do have are the best that we've made so far. We made a couple platypuses where his heads and his tails move, and I just think it looks so cool. And I think it has a greater emphasis because it's special when that happens. It's not just everywhere all over the place. So 2 overhead projectors on one screen. It's pretty magical.
Learn more about Bootown at thinktv.org. Just click on the Art Show. And that wraps it up for this edition of the Art Show. Until next time, I'm Rodney Veal, and thanks for watching.
Funding for the Art Show was made possible by Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, the Virginia W. Kettering Foundation, proud supporter of the arts in our community, Ohio Arts Council, Ohio Humanities Council, and viewers like you. Thank you.